Do you think we can be as responsible or responsible for the weather, whether it rains or whether there's wind or whether there is sunshine? Is that the level of 100% responsibility that you're referring to there? Or is that something that you can actually just say, you know what, that's out of my hands?
It's an incredible question that you asked. So my wife jokes because we do seminars all around the world, and she says we bring whatever weather that we want, and she does it, and I see it with extraordinary precision. Where when we have a winter event and we want snow, it snows. It wasn't even on the radar. When we're going somewhere and it's supposed to rain, if she doesn't want it to rain, it doesn't rain. Not 100% of the time, but it's quite uncanny. And one of my favorite books is Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda wrote a book in like the 60s. He was an Indian saint that came over from India and started teaching the combination of Hinduism and Christianity and sort of science of mind, right? Law of attraction and vibration here in the States. He's got the Self-Realization Fellowship, both in Pacific Palisades, which miraculously was the only thing that survived in the fires over there. It was untouched, and also a joint down in San Diego. One of my favorite books. And he tells the story of his guru changing the weather, right? Just the clouds dissipating, and it was very clear that it was his guru, Sri Yukteswar, who was able to achieve that. But this goes back to what Christ told us, right? Which is, you shall perform even greater miracles than I. Right? Was this a guy who could control the weather? Was this a guy who could walk on water? Was this a guy who could heal the lepers? Right? This is a guy who held a belief of health so strong that if you were in his presence, you were healed. Right? He was able to feed the 5,000. And whether you believe that's historically accurate or not, I happen to believe a lot of it is. Someone wrote a book to teach a point. And the point is that we create our own realities. And so I think we can take responsibility for just about everything.
On the weather thing, I heard a phrase, and I've been using it for years. There's no such thing as poor weather, just poor choice of clothing. And that's always helped me to understand that if it's raining, fantastic.
Yeah.
If it's sunny, fantastic.
Yeah.
If there's lots and lots of wind and it's making a noise and there's tumbleweeds going down there, fantastic. And I can't complain.
Right.
If I'm out and it rains, it's just my own choice. Like, I'm responsible for the choice of clothing that I made, and it just is what it is. Coming full circle to our original conversation, which is there's no good or bad, there's only what is.
Yeah, and responsibility is an ability to respond. So what you're talking about is choice. And the irony is that as a result of how we know the human being operating system functions, if you actually stop believing there's no such thing as bad weather, guess what you start to experience less of? Whatever you think is bad weather.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say bad weather, but it's actually not bad weather. It's weather
Right.
that you might be perceiving as bad.
Correct. But that I want to make sure this point sticks. Your approach of believing there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes, right? Will actually, as a result of how our brain is a goal-achieving machine and how we create our own realities, but even if you just stick with behavioral psychology, well, encourage you to make unconscious decisions that put you in places and locations where you actually experience less of what you would deem bad weather. Simply for your belief based on clothing choice. And it kind of gets to the God-SIBO question. Like, God may not be real. For me, God is real, right? Whatever that means. But a belief that there's an omnipotent, omniscient, loving presence taking care of you, and what that means for you and your life becomes your reality, whether God exists or not. Because the brain is so powerful, because of everything that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we know that. There's this question of like, well, can you actually heal your own body? It's like, well, it's not even a question. It's called the placebo effect. Right? They took a bunch of people, I can't remember how many it was in the hundreds, the Finnish shoulder impingement study, where they took a bunch of people in Finland, gave them slap repair on their rotator cuff, and then took a bunch of other people, convinced them that, put them under, didn't give them surgery, and the outcomes were exactly the same in terms of shoulder recovery. Right? Can you heal yourself? Sure, based on what you believe.
There's another study which shows if you just think about working out your bicep muscle,
Yeah.
that your bicep will actually still grow. Not as much as if you worked it out with the weight, but it's
Yes.
still gross,
Yeah.
even when you do nothing.
Yeah, you get the fast twitch stimulation. There was a study done in 2009. It was done at Harvard. It featured in Time magazine. They brought in piano players. They had them play the piano, and they studied what parts of the brain lit up. Then they had them come back and just imagine playing the piano. Same parts of the brain lit up. Now, since then, they've done more studies that show 80% of the neuronal activity was actually achieved through just imagination versus actually playing the piano. But what this shows us is your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And so how does this relate to us creating in our lives? Most people prevent themselves from imagining as a result of thinking they need to know the how first. Well, I need to know how I'm going to create a regenerative economy. I need to know how I'm going to get healthy from my chronic autoimmune condition. I need to figure out how I'm going to start a business. But the truth is that if you don't worry about the how and you just decide and you just allow that future to coexist with your present moment, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So you actually start to build a memory of a future that has not happened yet. So you start to become the person who has produced the result before you even know how. And the irony is that brain change, it is the building of new neural synaptic connections or a memory of a future that hasn't happened yet, that then starts to reveal to you the how. You have to become the person first. And it just makes sense, right? Because if you had actually achieved the outcome, like if you had actually made the $1 million and we sat down together, I would say, well, how'd you do it? You'd go, well, this is how I did it. So you have to become the person who's made the $1 million, and then the how will be revealed to you. But these are all the different kind of like psychological strategies, and I don't like the word hacks, but techniques that the most successful, most powerful, most influential people in the world are using, consciously or unconsciously, to create the empires that we live in. And now I think we're entering an era where we're actually starting to be able to create these empires ourselves. And as more and more people start to wake up and learn how to develop the skill and to do it together towards noble outcomes, not as a result of craving power, like this is going to be the transition from the current era of humanity into the next one.